Right, but my point about this is you made a bunch of testimony on street value.
So I could be wrong, but where this lawyer is going is, why are you talking about street value as if Johnny's going into some back alley drug dealer and doing some some shady deal? He went to a licensed doctor, got a prescription, went to a pharmacy, and got these as legally as could be. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of IDRYB Reacts. I am Lutch, your host, and today we are going to be going through a little bit of the trial footage from day one of the last week of the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp defamation trial. Right now, they've got a psychologist, something on the stand who is testifying in favor of Amber and is not really doing a good job. So why don't we take a look into what's going on?
I mean, shout out to you.
Why don't we move a little differently? Are you a member of the American Medical Association?
No. Shout out to
okay, so you don't know what the ethical rule of the American Medical Association is relative to doing clinical diagnoses about individuals you've never seen.
Shout out to V.
So
That's
you're saying
exactly
you're
right.
going to do expert witness evaluations under that rubric, right?
I'm just asking you, do you know the AMA's rule?
You're saying AMA's ruling under the rubric of not to evaluate somebody you did not see. And I'm questioning, I'm asking. So you are talking about expert witness testimony?
No, I'm talking about, do you know the rule?
I'm not a member of the AMA, so
okay,
I
great. Okay, move on. You don't know the.
So then the answer is no, guy. You got to just give yes or no answers. This guy has been pontificating and elaborating, and it's not doing well for Johnny's case. And this is Johnny's lawyer talking to him, talking to the witness. And so we want these clear answers because we want the answers that we want. We don't want him to be going rogue and doing his thing.
Rule. You rendered an opinion.
He's getting frustrated. They're both frustrated as hell.
Cognitive impairment.
Yes.
Yeah. What to use as a baseline?
A baseline for processing speed?
Yeah, for analyzing Mr. Depp before you watched his deposition.
Shout out to translations.
Baseline for that. I mean, I guess my baseline would probably be how I've seen him interact in public. How I've seen him interact with others. I've seen him interact in media. I've seen him interact and his process speed is certainly not slow. I've seen him do commercials. His process speed was not slow.
At deposition, didn't you say that what you did was compare Mr. Depp's performance in lots of pirate movies against his deposition testimony here?
What I said was I've seen Mr. Depp do apology ads. I remember he did apology ads.
Who thinks this dude is hooking up with grandma?
I've seen him interact with the media regarding to that. I saw no delay in processing speed. All I'm saying.
Let me ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
And I apologize for what I said. And I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that.
What is going on?
Okay. Because you know you can't compare pirates to sworn testimony, right?
Yes. But you can do, but as an aside, you can judge someone's processing speed at any time. Like I'm judging yours right now, you're judging mine. We all judge processing speed as a baseline.
This dude is trying to say that because of the Jack Sparrow character, that he can use that as a baseline to judge that what Johnny is doing in the courtroom, that his cognitive abilities have gone down. And clearly that's not how it's done. So
because we know
there's no question. He's just talking.
So I mean, we're judging processing speed. I'm saying to you.
Yeah. Look at Camille. Camille's like, this is, look at Camille.
Depp's other portrayals.
Camille's like, this is bullshit.
Affect your analysis of processing.
She's right.
I've seen him interact on interviews, and that was it. When he wasn't in movies.
But Willy Wonka doesn't matter to you. You see him in that movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing processing speed?
Wait, I want to go back.
You see in that movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Full screen it.
Did you look at that one when you were comparing processing speed?
What the fuck?
Oh no, man.
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
Yes, you do have to answer questions.
Willy Wonka as C-21 Jump Street when it happened. No, I did not.
All right.
The judge is like, you got to answer questions. Look at Camille.
Admission, I think, early on in your deposition, that you're not claiming to be a better actor than Mr. Depp. That's correct, isn't it?
100%.
All right. But with respect to acting, you know that actors actually rehearse for their parts and work on the language, diction, timing of their dialogue as part of that rehearsal?
If you say that, I'm not an actor, so I don't know what goes on. I can't tell you. I have no idea what goes on.
Okay, but you
remember that.
Shout out to Boston. Shout out to
rehearse.
K-Rod.
Sir, I am not an expert in acting. I have no idea what an actor does.
Okay.
That's twice he said it.
What's up with his mouth?
The
Do y'all
lead-
hear his mouth?
lead's crazy.
What does
Shout
this
out to
mean?
lead
During your
attorney.
deposition,
Look at Johnny.
any circumstances
Shout out to
under
lead
which you
attorney.
decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot.
Under somebody call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition.
Well, I think, okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was in the, you probably should read the context of it, but I think the context.
Yes or
And
no?
I'm trying to think back. Okay. And what I thought it was related to was if you're coming to some deposition, okay. And again, I'm thinking back. So you have it in front of you. I don't. So I'm thinking back where
Look
he's
at him
coming
fighting.
from Europe for a deposition, video deposition that he gave, and
Yes or no?
took it overnight the night before. And what I think I said was that if you're going to do a major thing for a trial that you're involved with, I just think you'd be an idiot to come in the night before. So I didn't call Mr. Depp an idiot. I certainly called that planning an idiot. I didn't call him an idiot.
So the words "so I mean he's an idiot" are mistranscribed.
No, I'm sure. Again, if I said it in that, if you
This
just
is
one
terrible
line, one
impeachment.
snippet, I'm sure it was in the context I just said. But yeah, you have it in front of you, I know.
This is terrible. This
And that's a great point that the lead attorney is making, is that as bad as this guy is, the lawyer is not doing his job of impeaching the witness and making him seem terrible. I mean, the witness is doing a great job of doing that on his own, but the lawyer should be the one making that case. But luckily for Johnny, this guy is a freaking quack.
attorney's not good.
Is,
He's messing
Did you
up.
get a professional opinion?
I wasn't running professional.
Yeah. Is it a psychiatric opinion?
That follows the Goldwater rule.
How does it follow?
I just said that I'm not rendering a professional opinion. I just said idiot. That's not a.
No, so idiot is not a professional opinion.
Mhm.
Is it your practice to describe people as idiots?
My practice describing in my practice. No, I don't describe people my clinical cases as idiots or patients as idiots or victims as idiots. No, sir.
But you sat for a deposition in this case and described the plaintiff as an idiot, correct? But you made some testimony today as to some evaluations you made relative to his functioning. You would agree with me that it's probably a good idea to think about the questions that are asked you in a court proceeding before answering.
Am I allowed to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. So what I meant by function, what I said by function, I believe that his agent reported
Shout
how
out to
late
Luke
he was
Hazley.
showing up to every movie while the cast is waiting for him. I believe that would be an impairment. If I showed up late for
Facts,
that,
okay,
I would
man.
not be here right now. I would not have a job. Okay. I believe the thing was in terms of walking out of treatment for substance rehab that his doctor is prescribing for him. So if you're asking me if that's an impairment of functioning, I would say I'm very much substantiated in that.
I'm trying to understand how you got to this notion of cognitive decline. And I thought it was based
This is pretty good, guys. This is entertaining.
I'm sorry, what?
on the manner in which he testified.
On the manner, I'm sorry, I'm not being difficult. I can't hear. I'm sorry. What?
I was asking you about the cognitive decline
Yes.
testimony that you made.
Yes.
And it was my understanding that at least a portion of that testimony that you rendered was that
Shout out
You-
to Taylor.
derived some evidence of cognitive decline from the way Mr. Depp testified.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I said. Yes.
Right. And so all I'm asking you is, don't you think it's a good idea when you're in the middle of a court proceeding to answer questions carefully?
Again, professionally, we diagnose patients with a neurocognitive disorder by gross evaluation all the time with cognitive. On the thought that, again, age normal controls, I'm just saying, age normative controls does not put a 58-year-old gentleman at that processing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I said.
And you derived this without ever once talking to the man.
Me directly talking to him. Because we know how I derived it. So you're talking about me directly talking to him?
Yeah, you never talked.
No, I've never talked to him.
And this exam you gave, well, you did talk about Dr. Blaustein, right?
Yes, sir.
Shout out to Julio.
And you understand that the entirety of Dr. Blaustein's medical records are 12 pages of handwritten notes.
The important part was what I said. For me, as an example of cognition, which I'm trying to prove, which is what you asked me, the important part was what I said. And that was irrefutable.
Shout out to Edward Anderson.
The important part is that he gave the mini mental status exam.
Yes, sir.
All right.
This
Let's
dude is
talk
good.
about the mini mental status exam.
This doctor's gonna be replaying this with all his friends.
Yes.
All right. And it's an exam that
Shout out to
basically
Edward.
is most often used for Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of tests.
All right, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
You don't know what drawing Mr. Depp did or whether the drawing should have been fully scored.
I wasn't questioning his visual spatial perceptual skills, which is what that does.
So
And you don't know.
they're just talking about one of the tests that the psychiatric test that Johnny had done, and it involved the one that they're talking about involves doing drawings to test spatial ability.
What score Mr. Depp received on
Shout out to the
the exam.
beautiful.
I was very specific.
realness.
I know 3 words, not remembering, at 5 minutes. That's all I said.
3 words, not remembering 5 minutes, and he remembered one of them, right?
From what I'm saying, you remember it.
All right. Memory on the exam. Out of the 30,
Again, a memory test where you're given 3 words and then you got to do some other stuff, and then 5 minutes later you're supposed to be able to recall the 3 words, and Johnny was only able to recall 1.
points, what's it worth? 3, right? Memory is 3 out of the 30.
Yeah, memory's 3. But again, the memory section in and of itself tests memory. That's the only question that tests memory. Only section that actually tests memory.
So the memory section tests memory. It's the only section you're testified about. And for all you know, that with respect to the exam that you're relying on, Mr. Depp scored 27 out of 30.
And that would be telling, though, cognitively, if you score 27 and 30 and you missed 3 points on memory. That would be very telling.
You don't know if Mr. Depp had been up all night the night before.
Again, you wouldn't expect to not recall any more
Yes
than
or
3
no?
minutes unless there's a cognitive issue.
You don't know if Mr. Depp was high.
And again, now that could affect memory, but I'm not refuting that. I'm not refuting that at all. He could have been high, he could have been drunk, he could have been using cocaine, and that would absolutely affect his memory. Like what I said, yes, you're right.
So ultimately, you have no idea what state Mr. Depp was in at the time you took the exam that you're relying on.
Short of what you just said about drugs and alcohol, okay, there shouldn't be a reason why 58-year-olds also.
Shout out to Miss AT Alien.
But short of that, there shouldn't be a really good reason why someone at that age shouldn't come up with at least one.
And so again, he's talking in generalizations, but that isn't relevant when we're in a case about 2 specific people and specific incidents and specific. You're talking in generalities and probabilities and statistics, and that's not helpful here. So that's pretty much where that goes. Let's continue on a little bit further. So let's get back into it.
Let's talk a little bit about you kept using correlation. You know the word, right?
Yes.
Correlation and causation aren't the same thing, are they, sir?
No, they're not.
No, they're not the same thing.
No, how are they different?
Correlation is a risk for something happening. Causation is a direct link.
Right. So
Shout out to
just because something's correlated doesn't mean it's going to happen.
100%.
Right. But lung cancer, for instance, smoking is very highly correlated with lung cancer, right?
Yeah, and there's certainly a link between lung cancer and smoking.
Right. But not all smokers get lung cancer.
Shout out to Kenya.
Not all smokers do. No one, like I said, no one fits the curve perfectly.
Right. And you made repeated testimony to all of us. All of us do this. All of us do that.
Mm-hmm.
Your suggestion about all of us is you're just looking at the world as a sample and not at any particular individual, correct?
What I'm looking at is that.
Didn't give a yes or no question. You're not talking about an individual, correct? No, I'm not talking about an individual. But this case is about an individual. So why are you here? Why are you wasting our time? This is the best that Amber Heard's attorneys could do.
I'm not talking about an individual, how they can or cannot be resistant. What I'm saying is invariably, when you use substances, this is going to happen. Now, is there a 0.05% chance that someone who does? Absolutely.
Shout out to the Lord.
But is that medical degree of certainty? Absolutely not.
A 0.05% chance of what, sir?
Eventually developing symptoms. If you're using excessively, eventually you're going to develop symptoms.
So again, how do you know Johnny's not in that 5%? Reasonable doubt. That's all we need.
So someone could have every single risk factor for IPV and never commit IPV, right?
And so they defined this earlier. IPV stands for intimate partner violence, and it is abuse or aggression that occurs in a romantic relationship. Intimate partner refers both to current and former spouses and dating partners. So that's IPV, intimate partner violence. That's what they are saying. And so they're asking that just because Johnny does all these drugs, it doesn't mean that he necessarily. So sorry to interrupt your podcast experience. I just want to remind you, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really love it, there's some support links in the description. I would love if you could help out the channel. And back to the show. Committed this violence.
It would be, again, if you're going to say medical degree of probability, the answer is they will. But if you're saying uniformly, the answer is no.
And again, that's what a trial is for. And saying, okay, on a balance of probabilities, you probably did this. But the trial is to see if you actually did or not.
IPV can occur without substance abuse.
Oh, sure.
Someone can abuse substances without ever perpetrating IPV.
Again, absolutely. But again, you are saying different than what I said. I did not say abusing substance.
Cut him off.
Substance use.
Look at him.
Those are two different things, because there are surely
Look at the lead attorney.
that do not engage in any violence, do not become psychotic, nothing at all. So
Look at the lead attorney when he answers the question. Watch the lead attorney now.
But again, you are saying different than what I said. I did not say abusing substance. I said substance.
Look at his reaction.
Those are two different things, because there are
Jesus
surely people who
Christ.
use substances that do not engage in any violence, do not become psychotic, nothing at all. So
And that's
absolutely.
equally true of people who have substance abuse disorder. There are certainly people who have substance abuse disorder who don't commit IPV.
Thank you so much.
You're saying people who have substance use disorders, the majority of them, over 50% do. So over 50% do. So that's
The answer is yes.
as you said, not everyone who smokes gets lung cancer.
So
Thank you, Michael.
there are significant numbers of people. You said it was over 50. So
Look at Johnny.
let's say 40%
Johnny, back up,
of
Johnny.
people who have substance abuse disorder don't commit IPV.
And those are the ones that do not have IPV risk factors are, right? So we're talking about people
Wait a
who
minute,
don't.
isn't
Thank you, Mike.
substance abuse disorder and
Thank you,
IPV risk factors?
Yeah, you know, other people that don't have other risk factors, right?
But again, we're talking about people in general. You don't know anything about any particular individual as to whether anybody's going to commit IPV.
If statistics follow through, all we can say is more than 50%, 7% will. If you combine more risk factors you have, the more likely you're going to develop illness. You smoke cigarettes once, that might not correlate to lung cancer. If you smoke it chronically, that might. So
Right.
that's
So
what
we're
I'm saying.
talking about individuals here. You either have lung cancer
Exactly.
or you don't, right?
Exactly.
If you're smoking, right.
You either commit IPV or you didn't.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, you either did or you didn't. Yes.
Right.
Shout out to
So
Rochelle.
you took some issue with me because
Shout
I
out to
was
Harry.
asking about substance abuse generally, and you wanted me to talk about the disorder. I asked you earlier about narcissistic personality disorder,
Mhm.
and you haven't made that diagnosis. You just talked about the traits, right?
Yes.
And somebody can have these narcissistic personality traits and substance abuse disorder and never commit IPV, right?
So along that line,
Oh, here we go.
about 80 to 90% of people who commit IPV have a personality disorder. So the answer is less than about 10% obviously do not.
There are more close links with IPV for borderline personality disorder than narcissistic personality disorder. Correct, sir?
I'm not going to agree with that.
No.
I'm not saying there are more links. I would say there are absolute. If you're asking me there are links, the answer is absolutely. If you're saying to me more, I can show studies. Say yes, no studies. Say that has not been absolutely definitively correlated. No, absolutely not.
Try and skip through some of this.
I'm here for this.
And what's the normal dosage of ecstasy for people who use ecstasy?
Again, I couldn't tell you the quote unquote normal.
I can. Usually, when you are buying or ingesting ecstasy, you are looking at about 0.2 grams for one hit. Johnny is probably doing something more like 1 to 2 full grams at a time.
Dose because honestly speaking, no one knows what they're getting when they're using it, right? It's not regulated. So,
But the effects of ecstasy enhance sense of well-being.
at low doses, the answer is yes. I'm going to gather when you're using it at higher doses and develop tolerance, you develop the sympathomimetic effects, which are not so enhanced well-being.
Increased extroversion, that's the symptom.
Again, at low dose, you are 100% right. At low amounts, you are 100% right. It is an adaptogen. We feel closer to people. That's what people use it, say. They feel close to people, warm to people.
Shout out to
100%.
Fable.
But with continual use and higher doses, it can be fatal. Right. So that's not well-being. I don't know if I call that well-being.
So continued use at higher doses,
Shout out to
MDMA can be
Reed.
fatal, correct?
Correct.
What if you took 8 to 10 tablets of MDMA?
What if you took eight? Again, you don't know what it's very hard to say that. You don't know what it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Contaminated with. Okay. You can't just say, hey, let me just take
Told
8 to 10
ya.
pure ecstasy and see what happens. That's not going to happen. So what I would say to you, again, because substance abuse are unpredictable, they are not regulated. No one knows what they're going to. No one absolutely has any idea whether it's going to cause this empathic adaptogen effect at very low doses, or is it going to cause the sympathomimetic, increase, it's like a stimulant, like cocaine, something we talk about like that. No one knows what's going to happen. It's not regulated. And no one knows if you're using with other substances either, like other stimulants,
Or if you mix it with alcohol?
or mixed with alcohol. No one knows it's going to be potentially worse.
Right. But this is a potentially lethal combination. 8 to 10 MDMA tablets and
This
alcohol.
is a potentially toxic combination.
Right.
Can it kill you? Yeah, I mean, it is a potentially toxic combination. That's true.
Ever heard of someone cutting off their own finger on MDMA?
Have I ever heard of it?
Yeah.
No, I will give you one example.
Haven't seen that one. Okay. So Seroquel, that one
This is such a shit
puts
show,
you to sleep,
guys.
right?
If you want a phrase of barbiturate putting you to sleep, then the answer is yes.
Shout out to
Mr.
Terica.
Mr. Depp talking about sometimes being on the nod, right?
And again, I think I explained Seroquel very well.
I think they explained, being on the nod or nodding out pretty well. But for those of you who live a life where you have no idea what that is, your eyes get heavy, and if you've ever stayed up for like 3 days straight and you're like literally not able to stay awake, it looks a little bit like that's being on the nod. It's when the drugs are slowing down your system so much that you literally can barely stay awake. That's what they're talking about.
Good. I'm going to ask him a few more questions.
Okay.
All right. You keep making references to street value. Why were you doing that?
Because that's why people with substance use disorder use quetiapine and Seroquel.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
That's why people who use quetiapine or slash Seroquel it sells on the street because it's so barbiturate-like in effect.
Right, but you said that Mr. Depp had a prescription.
There are many substance use disorder patients who have prescriptions for Adderall and quetiapine from their doctor, and that doesn't mean they're not getting high out of it. That doesn't take much. Doctors like to believe what patients have to say. They're not going to go in there being expert witness testimony. All I'm telling you is that in people who have substance use disorder, it is not uncommon. And the thought was initially that because quetiapine was not addicting, that it's safe to give in people with substance use disorders, when in fact, we absolutely know it has street value. Absolutely know that for a fact.
Right, but my point about this is you made a bunch of testimony about street value, but you knew.
So I could be wrong, but where this lawyer is going is, why are you talking about street value as if Johnny's going into some back alley drug dealer and doing some some shady deal? He went to a licensed doctor, got a prescription, went to a pharmacy, and got these as legally as could be. Whether or not he was abusing them, of course he was, is not the question. So talking about street value would only be done to put them in the minds of the jury that he is doing things worse than he really is. And I think we all can agree that there is a difference between somebody who hurt their back and they got a prescription to oxycodone and they didn't realize what they were getting into and they, found themselves addicted to it, versus somebody who, for whatever reason, decides to go to the bad part of town and go pick up some black tar heroin just because. Those are two different situations. Now, of course, there's a whole conversation about the addiction as a disease and all of that stuff. But the point is, those are two different situations, and this guy was trying to paint the worst one for Johnny when that was not the case.
At the time you made the testimony that Mr. Depp, in fact, had a prescription.
He also had a prescription for oxycodone and roxycodone. Does that count?
Shout out to
Because that's also probably not a good thing. Just because you have a prescription,
Not
Because
the
I agreed
question.
It wasn't a good thing.
just because you have a prescription doesn't mean you can abuse it.
No, I'm not suggesting you're abusing it. I'm just wondering why your testimony was in any way tied to street value when every single drug you referenced, Mr. Depp had legally.
Wow.
You can have prescription substance abuse, and we know that, correct? I should be asking that. We can have prescription substance use disorders, and that's not uncommon if you look at the
Now he's talking to the jury. Listen,
right now.
let's
We
do
can have
this.
that. That's not an uncommon thing. Unfortunate, but
They're fighting.
not uncommon.
Shout out to
So-
Terica.
Seroquel, I think you described as a sleeping agent when used off label.
When I saw what?
Sleeping agent, Seroquel, when used off label.
When used off label, it's used. I can be used sleeping aid. Yes.
Right. So Mr. Depp's use of Seroquel could account for some of the photos we saw in this trial.
Where's Amber? They're not
Again,
showing Amber.
What I would say to you is that if you have a substance
CLA
use
loves
disorder,
Amber.
you are using it to be knocked down. Yes, I agree. But I'm not sure at the end of the day if she had vomitus over you either. I've never seen Seroquel do that. So when he was passed out in the chair, he also had vomitus over him. I've never seen Seroquel do that ever.
Neurontin is another one of the drugs you testified about. That one's also prescribed, right?
Yes, it is.
And what's the
The
prescription?
lead attorney is writing him
What's it
a
used for?
note. Let's see what the note
What's its
says.
indication or what's its
Yeah,
use?
what's its indication?
I mean, its indication is for seizures. It may have one pain indication. Again, I'm not a neurologist, so I can't tell you exactly if it does. But it's chronically used off label for pain. It's used off label for anxiety.
And what's its effect? That's another one that'll put you to sleep, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure, 100%.
Right. And you made reference to a picture. There's been testimony around that picture that Mr. Depp fell asleep with ice cream in his hand. That's not vomitus, right?
I was told it was vomitus.
Okay.
I've never heard that word before.
Um,
Vomitus.
So if you don't know, why are you testifying to the fact that he vomited on himself if you're not sure if it's vomit or if it's ice cream? Then just don't say anything. There's so much that this guy doesn't know, yet feels entitled to act as an expert witness on. And it doesn't matter how many degrees you have. It doesn't matter how many books you've read. If you don't know what you're talking about, then you don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you're acting on incomplete information, then you don't know what you're talking about. It's just that simple.
You talked about the fact that Mr. Depp indicates that from time to time he uses an earpiece.
Here we go.
Yes.
Okay. Did you read the testimony of Mr. Wyatt, who told you what was being pumped into that earpiece?
Yeah. I mean, if I remember right, I mean, I think it was lines, right?
No, it was music.
It was music, not his line?
Yeah. So if Mr. Depp was listening to music rather than being fed his lines, does that change your opinion as to his cognitive function?
If he was never fed his lines through the earpiece, which I know he was, but read he was, and that may have been that example, Mr. White may have said that it was music. I guess the question is, were you having the music during the actual talking of your lines? Is that what you're saying to me?
Well, if you can do two things at once, that's a pretty high cognitive function, isn't it, sir?
It's a very good point, actually. Divided attention is something humans have a lot of trouble in. So, for instance, we have trouble driving and putting on using our.
Whose side is this guy on? He's actually, yeah, now that you say that, I don't know what I was talking about before, but now that you bring up some actual relevant information, yeah, Johnny's a pretty smart guy. Like, what is this again, $6 million for Amber's legal team, and this is what they're getting. This is what's going on.
Cell phones and direct. So, divided attention humans actually are not very good at. I'll put that out there.
But Mr.
In general, not just Mr. Depp.
He's just talking shit.
You acknowledge that early on.
This is going nowhere.
Well, better than me, so I know that.
Because you don't act. In fact, you don't know about acting.
You're right. I have no idea about that.
And you don't know
Shout out to Bill
how
Reed.
prevalent the use of earpieces are in acting.
Again, I know nothing about acting.
Irrespective of the fact you know nothing about acting, you've testified that Mr. Depp's use of an earpiece is somehow a cognitive deficit.
So if I was giving a lecture and I was fed my lines, I would think there's a cognitive deficit. And maybe I'm wrong. I said maybe I could be wrong. Maybe Hollywood stars get lines fed to them through earpieces all the time, and
Shout out
I
to
don't
Bill
know.
Reed.
Again, why are you testifying to what is going on if you don't have any idea whether that's regular or not? For all you know, you've just testified, I think it was 3 different times, that you know nothing about acting. Yet, you're saying that, oh, if an actor's being fed their lines, that's a sign of cognitive decline. But what do you don't know anything. I don't understand what this guy is doing. And again, this is $50 million that Amber does not have on the line.
It sounded to me to be unusual if you're doing a movie and you don't know the lines. But like you said, I'm just judging on what I do with lectures, and that would never happen.
If you gave a lecture, you wouldn't use an earpiece, but you're not going to tell anybody how to act.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I said if you gave lectures, you wouldn't use an earpiece, but you're not telling anybody how to act.
Right, I would not use an earpiece during lectures.
Right.
But I don't know what the standard for standard is Hollywood is for that. I have no idea.
Your testimony about the use of an earpiece, as maybe you were wrong. You're comfortable with the fact that you may have made a mistake there?
No, because I think in the basis of what I've read about it, I'm comfortable that I don't believe that actors are routinely given their entire script through earpieces.
You just said you don't.
And yeah, I just cut off the lead attorney saying so, but he just testified he knows nothing about this. Yet, because he's an expert witness, he can say that, oh, this is cognitive decline. Well, is this what they always do? I don't really know. Oh,
don't know anything about acting.
Not one whit of evidence that this ever happened here.
I guess what I said. I just said I find it hard to believe. I didn't
This
say
witness
that.
is
I said
all
I
over
find
the
it hard to
place.
believe. That's all I said.
Oh, yeah, but what you found hard to believe, sir, was that every line of the script was pumped through an earpiece. Where did you ever get the idea that occurred?
That's what I read, and they got court review, the court evidence. That's where I got it from.
And
I love this.
So that means that if he is only going based off what was reported in the court, then somebody is lying. Who do you think it is?
Marlon Brando used an earpiece?
Isn't he dead?
Yeah.
So the answer is no. He does not use one now.
No, I used the past tense.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know nothing.
Look at Johnny.
I know nothing about acting. I will concede to you 100%. If that is the standard and people are done that acting, then I apologize, and that was wrong on my part.
Why don't you know this before you are testifying?
If that's the standard, I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay.
So let's cut it there. I think that's a nice little peek into what we saw this morning. It's not looking good for Amber. Now, it's very clear that between the two of them, this was a toxic relationship. There is no two ways about it. But toxic relationships happen all the time, and $50 million aren't on the line. Why? Because people don't go and write op-eds about one side of the story and how much they are a victim and make people like Johnny Depp lose movie roles and put that much money on the line. Do I think it's okay that they treated each other the way that they did? Absolutely not. I don't understand why they have been together for so long. I would imagine that just, actors are different types of people, and so they live different types of lives, and this is just normal stuff to actors. I don't know. But to make it seem like Johnny is some abuser is simply not the case. This was a mutually toxic relationship. So, I mean, this is just before lunch. I'm hopping back in to watch the rest of the testimony. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think about what's been going on? Share this with your friends. Everybody needs to know about this. This is not just celebrity gossip. This is a cultural case. This is actually showing that the equality that people are asking for is not necessarily a myth of double standards. We're finally seeing a woman who has made false accusations being held accountable in a court of law. And whether or not either of them are angels is irrelevant. The fact is, if you treat people a certain way, there are consequences to that. If you lie about somebody's life and cause them harm because of those lies, you need to pay up. I don't know. What do you guys think? Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. Those support links are there, but of course it is absolutely free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We just passed 250 subscribers, and we are only going up from here. I've got another IDRYB live coming. We're talking about What is the role of police in society? Semi-relevant. So if you are interested in that conversation, I've got some old faces and new coming in to talk about that next week. So make sure, again, not only hit that subscribe button, but ring the bell so that you know when we are going live. Comments are going to be a big part of that conversation. I would love for you to be a part of it. Like I said, this is just one clip from today. There's more to come, but this is the final week and it's not looking good for Amber. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll be back with some more stuff. Until then, I am out of here. Peace.